Hi guys, my name is Jouelzy and I hate living everywhere. So let's talk about how I felt about living in Dallas, Texas, so people can argue and come at me in the comment section down below. Are you ready? Because I am. Alright, so how I'm gonna approach this. There are things that I loved and things that I was indifferent about. I did not hate living in Dallas. People ask me my thoughts about Dallas. I say Dallas is like a boring, generic, major suburb. That's pretty much how I feel about Dallas, Texas. Now, what I liked about Dallas was I loved DFW Airport. I collected mad miles, this close to being executive platinum status on American Airlines. I loved the efficiency. I loved the prices of the flights. I loved how accessible and easy it is as a city to get in and out of. And because American Airlines is headquartered there and Southwest is headquartered there, there's literally no place in the United States that I couldn't get to on a direct flight. Like, went to Boise, Idaho for a project. Direct flight. That's not that big of a deal. Nashville, I mean, I guess. I don't know where else random places I've been to. I live downtown Dallas, so I could literally get on the train and go into Terminal A at DFW. I like that even for a suburban city, there was like some sort of public transportation that made certain parts of the city a bit more accessible. I love my cost of living. If anything, I do not regret living in Dallas. I lived there for a little over 2 years. Can you believe it? Moved there March of 2016 and I moved out August 2018. Just shy of 2.5 on point, 2.5 months, 2.5 years. Not only is cost of living the cost of the apartment, but it's also like how much space size can I get? And because yes, I'm a person who used to live in New York City, location does matter to me. So no, I'm not willing to move out to East Bumblefuck and be out in the woods in the sticks. Still was downtown. There were things happening. I was at Miss, the bars and the restaurants and the arts district and that stuff that matters to me. I was in the mix of that, on top of my rent not being expensive. And I just genuinely actually physically liked my apartment. I liked the apartment that I lived in. It's one of the first places I lived in where I decorated and where I hung up artwork, where like it was home, it was my space, it was my place, and I felt at home when I was in it. I also like the neighborhood. I live near Farmers Market. So that was cool. You know, my biggest complaint about Dallas is I just did not see black people a lot. Part of that is because where I lived in downtown Dallas, which is like a business district. And also part of that is like the history of how Dallas was formed and the politics of Dallas and all these other things. Those things do matter to me. You know, I think in general, I'm not a real estate agent, so I shy away from giving people suggestions about whether or not they should move to someplace. But I will say a benefit that's good for Dallas that wasn't necessarily particular to me, well, maybe it was, because part of the reason that I moved to Dallas from Houston, Texas, was that brands were hitting me up and they were saying, you know, if you were in Dallas, it's a major market, we could do more with you, there would be more opportunity. And it was true. I moved to Dallas and I got a ton more opportunity. Doors really opened up for me. Just been very blessed at my time in Dallas. You know, I went through a whole lawsuit with my former manager while I lived in Dallas, and I don't know that I could have really lived anywhere else and been able to have weathered that storm. So for that, I am definitely grateful. You know, to circle back to the point about I shy away from giving people advice on whether to live in a city or not. I'm not a real estate agent. I don't know you. I don't know your family. I don't know your energy, your personality, your aspirations, your goals. I just don't know enough about you to tell you, and I feel like anyone who you should be seeking moving advice from should be someone that knows you a little bit more intimately than someone who you just see online. To connect it to the point about people telling me to move to Dallas because there were lifestyle companies, because lifestyle companies are headquartered in Dallas, and I would work with them more so as an influencer and contractor. But if you're looking for a job, the job market in Dallas is great. You know, like any major CPG, which is a consumer packaged goods, wow, forgetting my acronyms, but any CPG company definitely has an operations hub centered in Dallas. Dallas is like the hub for the Southwest market. It's part of the hub for the Southern market. I know sometimes people think of Atlanta, but when you think of like operations, the state of Georgia only has one airport, and that is ATL. So it's very difficult to get things in and out of. DFW and DL, like airport, this is way more technical than people care, but Dallas is just a really good port for a lot of things. So like Pepsi, Lay's, Snapple, that's all one company. Toyota is now headquartered there. Verizon is. American Airlines, Southwest. Is it Mary Kay or Avon or both of them? JCPenney's, Neiman Marcus. All the beauty brands come through Dallas. Style Hall is based in Dallas. There's one or two makeup companies that is headquartered in Dallas as well, but I don't really know. I just know I was like getting invited. I would get invited to actual events. I would happen to never be home when these events were happening, but like a lot of the liquor companies would do major events. All the makeup companies, I would get invitations to that. BeautyCon happened the first year that I lived in Dallas. It didn't come back, but it was a great time when it did happen. I got to see a lot of my friends on YouTube because they would come through Dallas at some point in time. I think part of sacrificing living outside of New York or LA for someone like myself is that I don't get a lot of FaceTime with people now, and I felt like Dallas was a good middle ground because I still like both. I'm in a public policy cohort for Google, and there will be events and stuff, especially for the like Latino market that happened in Dallas, and my cohorts would come through Dallas and I'd get to sit and talk with them and chat with them, whatever. New Orleans is really close, so when stuff's popping off there, I can just easily get there. And I really appreciate just being in a city, like regardless of whether I like the city itself or not, it's that I'm at a point where I don't want to be tethered to a city. So I don't necessarily need to love the city. I need to love the life that I live in that city. Really enjoyed the fact that when I was tired of Dallas and I wanted to get out and go on a trip, that both because of the cost of living, both because flights are easy to get there and they're cheap, both because I can get more opportunity and stack my bread, like all these kind of things that I enjoyed about the city came together and made that very feasible for me. So I had a lifestyle that was closer to the lifestyle that I would like to live. There's some things that were, I think I've expensed my time there. And so now the things that I didn't so much care about, I'm ready to go. So what I didn't so much care about is I wholeheartedly stand by this statement. I think Dallas lacks culture. Yes, it's Texas. There's Mexican, Hispanic culture, but even that, I feel like in particular, in Dallas is very whitewashed. Like Tex-Mex is an interesting concept to me in that you put cheese on everything and you take away the spice and you call it something good. And I just was like, but the seasoning, sis, now I had some good, I think everything just gets called Tex-Mex in Dallas, even though I had some stuff that was closer to like authentic Mexican, and that I did enjoy. Like if I went to Mexican owned restaurants, like brown skin Mexican owned restaurants in Texas, the Dallas state was great. But I took my mama for Tex-Mex in Dallas and she was mad. She was big mad at me. Like when I do talk about lack of culture in general, I'm talking about like black culture now. There are actually African hubs in Dallas. There's a large Ethiopian community. The Kenyans are well represented. Both of them is out somewhere far from actual Dallas. But when people talk about Dallas, they talk about DFW, which is Dallas-Fort Worth, the DFW Metroplex. But Fort Worth is far, sis. Shout out to Ashley D, who be driving back and forth. I'm like, girl, bless your gas mileage, because it would not be me. So therefore, because I find Fort Worth to be far, Arlington, which is where a lot of black people live, is also far. It's like a good 30 miles from where I live. Says, that's not close. Dallas is the first city that I've lived in that did not have an active civil rights movement in the city. Like it does not have the sort of civil rights history that a place like Houston or Atlanta or Philadelphia or Baltimore or New York or any other place that I've lived has had. Now there's a book called The Accommodation. You can only get it in PDF format. I have the book. It's written by a white guy. It details the political history of Dallas and how Dallas First Baptist, so that big glass church in Dallas downtown, made a deal with the black pastors at the time and said, because like the third rising of the KKK was hit off in Dallas. So like Deep Ellum and maybe Uptown area used to be black neighborhoods in Dallas, and black folks were just getting bombed. Like there was like actual terrorism happening to the black community in Dallas. Like it's a bunch of stuff because I'm like conflating like different stories, but basically the political structure penalized two poor white men and put them in jail and said they were the ones doing all the bombing. Sis, all right, whatever. And then Dallas First Baptist, which is part of the political structure, because sis, have you seen that glass building downtown? Made a deal with black pastors and said, if you can keep the civil rights movement from like bubbling over here, we'll ensure that certain things are okay with your community. We'll give you, you the pastors will give you certain privileges. So now what you have in Dallas is both because, and yes, I know the civil rights movement happened in the 50s and 60s. People are like, what does that have to do with you in 2018? I'm 33. So when I want to go out to like There's no black-owned spots. And I think when you look at cities that tend to have a lot of black culture, part of that black culture being able to thrive and survive and make the city colorful relied on black activism, relied on blacks being able to push for that and have a say in the community, not just a few politicians. I know we love to frame things as like, oh, a few politicians did great things. But no, there's a lot of people whose stories we have never heard who are the reason why New Orleans and Detroit and Chicago and Philadelphia and New York City can really be seen as these hubs of black culture. Dallas, on the other hand, didn't really ever have that movement pop off for a very conscious reason. Like, the city made an effort to ensure that that did not happen. And so therefore the trickle down is that you do not have a very strong black cultural center in Dallas. That's also why you will not find a lot of black owned businesses. Not black owned businesses, but like, because there's black owned businesses, there's some black owned restaurants, but like black owned, and I don't want to say club, but like a lounge. Like in Houston, if I had a friend come in town and it was a Tuesday night and ain't nothing popping off, we would just go to Park. We would go to Prospect Park. No, I'm not in DC. Or we would go to Alley Cat, or there were different things that I could go to ensure that, like, and Houston's just also very black, and I could take them into spaces where like it just be a chill time, you could people watch, whatever. I didn't really ever find that in Dallas. So I know there's events happening. I know who AT is. You know, I've been to Wings Day, the Trappy Hour, Good Culture. I've been to all that stuff. But, you know, I know people are prone to want to refute that point with me, but even they had a hard time finding spaces that would allow them to host a black millennial crowd. Like, there's just not a lot in Dallas that I felt catered to young black working professional in a social setting. There is young professionals and you can join the Urban League. Okay, cool. But outside of that, I didn't really find, you know, the kind of like social scene that I can just walk into and, you know, I don't have to be like an active member of in order to partake in. Also, because I live downtown, technically the neighborhood that I lived in bordered Deep Ellum. I was in the Deep Ellum Community Watch group, and they racist. They just hella racist. And mind you, the group is basically like everyone that owns a restaurant or works in restaurants in the Deep Ellum area. The way that they would just talk about black folks, and some of these black folks, I'm like I know, you know, Christy Ray who DJs, you know, I know quite a few of the DJs in Dallas, and the way they would talk about the crowds that these people bring out, I'm just like, y'all are like very thinly veiling your racism, and it just puts a sour taste in your mouth. Like, I don't want to visit your business. I don't want to give you any money. I don't want to deal with you. Yeah, I'm also not a person who wants to be a member of a church, so I'm sure things would be a lot different if I had joined one of the churches in Dallas. I'm sure it'd be different if I worked at a corporate office and I went into office and I had people to meet that way. So basically, I think it's the same as Houston, where you basically meet people, church, the gym, work. The gym was in my complex, so it wasn't me, nobody there. I ain't go to church at all while living in Dallas, because I couldn't find a church that was similar to Hope City. Like, I really, really liked Hope City in Houston, and I couldn't find anything even close to that in Dallas, so that was that. I also just found the churchy people at Dallas to be judgmental. Very, like, not my cup of tea, and I'm sure I wasn't there, so the feeling was mutual, and we just didn't fuck with each other, so that was that. But also, as I said earlier, there's a lack of political engagement. Now, Dallas County, well, Fort Worth, I think he has even a lower turnout, because that Crystal Mason case is really under my skin. She did time for tax fraud or something, in jail, got out. Her mama during the presidential election convinced her that she needed to go vote, so she went in to try and vote. Her name wasn't on the registry. Now, Dallas is one of them states, Texas is one of them states, because we have this white bitch named Ted Cruz as our junior senator, who is just a total Please vote for Beto in November. A lot of like the voter ID laws that you hear about, a lot of the more restrictive like undoing of social services and civil rights stuff, or like affirmative action, is being led in Texas. A lot of that is being led outside of Dallas. So yes, Dallas is like a blue dot in a red state, but I'm connecting too many dots. Let me keep with Crystal. Crystal went to go vote. Her name was not on the registry. And I say that to say because going to vote in Dallas it can be intimidating. Like, they ask you for your ID. They ask you for these things that legally they're not supposed to, but a lot of people don't know what their legal rights are. So they purposely make it difficult for certain type of people to vote. So her name wasn't on the registry, so she did a provisional vote. She filled out a form that said, you know, we need to do an extra background check to make sure that you can vote, but in case you can vote, here you can vote. Now, there is some small text on there that says if you are a convicted felon and voting is considered perjury. Basically, long story short, They did a background, they did the check on the provisional vote. Her vote didn't even get counted, but they realized that she was, had did time, so therefore she can't vote. And they prosecuted her. And what's most frustrating is everyone who's involved in the prosecution of Crystal Mason, because she was basically prosecuted and convicted, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Like, I'm mad and I don't know what I can do in this structure, and I'm trying to reach out to people to figure out, but even that's frustrating. I am a politically active person, and it's very frustrating trying to like figure out what's happening and where. But every person involved in Crystal Mason's prosecution and her over punishment is an elected official. The Fort Worth DA is an elected official. The judge in Tarrant County is an elected official. To all that to point out that Fort Worth, I think, has like a 1.5% turnout for local elections. Dallas County overall is at 6%. Like, these are dismal numbers. People, especially in my age group, like, their economy's good. People are working. People are doing well. There's not a lot of reason for people to not be politically involved. Like, those, I think middle class people, I know you comfortable. I know it's easy for you to forget things are happening, but I feel like y'all have the most reason to be politically involved and the least amount of excuses on why not to. And it was just very tricky to try to navigate the space and figure out what was going on, because like we have EBJ, who was my congresswoman. The black politicians in the Dallas area tend to be old and not very welcoming to younger people. EBJ don't like young folk. I'm gonna just put that out there. I know she riding on this Maxine Waters, I'm gonna run for re-election, and I know she's benefiting from deference and people not wanting to counter her or run against her. I definitely got on, she didn't do town halls, but she did like a call. And so I got on the call and I was like, so I'm trying to find more information on what programs your office is working on, or, you know, what sort of advocacy work you guys are doing on encouraging particularly young, diverse voices to get involved in politics in Dallas. And she told me I could Google it. That's what she told me as her constituent on this call. I could Google it. And I said, well, okay. Then on the like Texas Senate level, I have Royce West. I could never get in touch with that man. I'd run into him in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. I ran up on a dude and was like, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to have out. You know, I have an audience. I would a platform. I would like to advocate. You know, I'd be more actively involved in Dallas. And I just feel like basically getting politically involved was like register to vote. And then like when some judges come up for election, like come to the meetings and like do that. But like the Democrat structure in Dallas is devastated. Like, they just ain't got their ish together at all. It's old, it's white, it's not very welcoming to young folk at all. And so I get it. Like, there's not a lot, like, it's difficult to be engaged and to keep up what's going on, even on any sort of level, because Dallas is just a business city. All the politics are involved and invested in business, and there never has been sort of this civil rights platform to kind of, you know, a lot of that stuff is what leverages people up. So both, it lacks in political engagement, and then that does impact the spaces that we're allowed into. That does impact why there is not like a scene for black professionals, as far as like just places that they can go, and bars and restaurants and clubs that are black owned for us to patron and that we feel welcomed in. I went to like Union Park, definitely ain't black owned. Maybe, I don't know, I've been to what's the African Lounge up in Addison too. I think that might be Villa or something. Union Park, anytime it was a black event, because I've been to a few there, I noticed that they automatically charge tip, like 20%, and then don't tell you. And then a lot of times you would have to, like, I went to a few, I don't even remember the guy name who did the events there, but like they would just tell you how much your tab was and not give you an itemized receipt. So you didn't even know that you already, like, I had to be like, yo, wait, I'm just paying and not getting a receipt. I was like, wait. Let me get an itemized receipt. And then I realized every time I've been there, and by this time it's like the third or fourth time I've been there, I realized like I was double tipping because they were, and mind you, I was like a party of two. Like, I'm there with me and my homegirl. I wasn't going in big parties. And so that's what I'm saying, like the sort of treatment that the black community gets there, it just was never really sat well with me. There are people that are doing work though on the ground, you know, they're folks. I just think the structure, the establishment, particularly the black politicians, are not very supportive of it, and it was just disheartening. The food scene, when it comes to people asking me Dallas versus Houston, I will say Houston's blacker and Houston has way better food. Dallas was like Tex-Mex, Italian, barbecue, maybe some Creole Cajun food sometimes, burgers and steaks, and pizza. you get a lot of new American food. There's really not anything that, like, if I'm like, when I'm in a city, like, there's a bunch of stuff while I'm in New York, I'm like, oh, I gotta go eat here. Even when I go home to Delaware, like there's things that I like, Capriati's I want to go eat at. Dallas, I mean, my favorite restaurant was Bucky Moonshine's. I guess I could go back to Bucky's, but you know, all I was getting is a catfish. Oh, I don't know how to say the name of that lake in New Orleans. Pontchartrain, some cream and crawfish etouffee on top of some black and catfish and some dirty rice. That is just banging. Ain't no HEB in Dallas, but I was a Central Market. I was a bougie Central Market shopper. I found out about Central Market. I had known about it. I was just like, it was like Whole Foods. I don't want to spend that much money on groceries, but I finally gave in. I realized it was love at first sight. Other than that, I didn't really have a social scene in Dallas because I was over it. I didn't want to try. I didn't want to put in effort. I was not joining a church. I knew I wasn't going to stay in Dallas for much longer. Trump got elected, and I was like, I'm surprised I stayed in Dallas for a whole year post his election. But November 2016 came, and I was like, oh yeah, we on our last leg. We gonna find our way out. So rather than move, though, I did renew my lease after that, and I just said I'm just going to travel a lot. So I did like a really heavy travel schedule last year, and I did not really invest a lot in trying to build friendships, mostly because to keep it real with you, this YouTube thing makes it hard. I get recognized a lot more. People know who I am a lot more, and people don't want to treat you like a human being. They want to treat you like a soap opera. You hang out with people, they want to tell you business. I just wasn't, not really interested in hanging out with other women who, like, every time you go out, they gotta be like, where the men at? There are no men here. They're trying to find some dick, girl. Look, the dating options in Dallas, I just was indifferent. I wasn't, like, niggas look like they dress and shop at Kmart. They don't iron their pants. I did not like the fashions. I did not like the aesthetics in Dallas. So I just wasn't really, and I also live downtown. Black folks don't live downtown. So I was like, well, I'm fitting to do, I just didn't really bother. I'm appreciative of my time there. I'm grateful there. I hate living everywhere. I can criticize living everywhere. And that's it. Those are my final thoughts on the city. If you were thinking about moving to Dallas, I suggest you come visit. Get your little Airbnb. Rent a car. If you live in Dallas, you do need a car. I had a car, then my car got totaled out when it got hit, and so I had a bike. So I did a little bit of exploring because my first 7 months or so, well, yeah, I moved in March, and no, not even. I had April, May, June, July. I had a car for 4 months while I lived in Dallas before I got hit in a car accident and my car was totaled out. But yeah, you'll definitely need a car. I heard Addison, Plano is popping. I mean, I like the shops at Legacy. It was cute. You know what I mean? Like, my friends would come in town, and like, that's another thing. I didn't invest a lot in the social scene because one, I was traveling a lot, and two, my friends would come in town for stuff. And so, like, I did a lot of events. Like, my friend works the company that does all of Lincoln's promotion. And so when they came through, I had things to do, and I had events to go to, and I had means and, like, things to get out to. So I didn't really do a lot of the effort because making friends at my age is difficult. The YouTube thing does not help. People don't know what to do with you because now everything happens through Instagram. So you get on Instagram, my numbers ain't even that popping. I got like maybe 50,000 followers on Instagram. It's really not that serious, sis. But folks would be pressed. Dallas is boring and not really for me. And that's my final thoughts on the city of Dallas. All right. I know y'all already got y'all Twitter fingers together and then the comments going off. It's okay, girl. I love you too. Deuces!